Hey, a lot of people ask me, John, how do I get a mortgage self-employed? And, you know, I really empathize with them because I am self-employed. And my guest, Tom Hemmingson of Market Line Mortgage, he's self-employed too. So when that question comes in, we get it. I mean, it's a valid concern. And when you're self-employed, you don't have the benefit of having a pay stub from some big, well-known employer. You're self-employed. You're working on your own. So I thought I'd have Tom join us in this conversation. Tom, thanks for joining us today.
Yep, thanks for having me, John.
Yeah, man. So if somebody is self-employed, one of the things I'm sure a lender is going to ask themselves is, hey, how can I get rid of the risk associated with getting a home loan to somebody who's self-employed? And there's certain things I'm sure they look at, and ultimately I'm sure they're going to want to know, how is it, as me, the lender, what can I do to eliminate the risk and have assurance that the person is going to be able to pay the loan back? So what can you say about that?
Yeah, John, I think it's a great question. And I think if you look at it just from an underwriter's perspective and they're just looking for income to know that their debt to income ratio is okay, I don't think it needs to be scary. It's self-employed provide tax returns, employed folks provide W-2s and pay stubs. But at the bottom line, if you shrink it all down, it's still income, it's still a bottom line figure, and what do we have to use? And I just don't think it needs to be scary for them to call in. I think it's a pretty self-explanatory conversation. And once I get a chance to look at either their Schedule C or Schedule K, where their self-employment income comes through, I think you find it becomes a pretty easy dialogue.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. Although they may not have a pay stub from a big employer, they're getting paid themselves. And let me ask you this, if they're writing a lot of stuff off and not showing a lot of income, that could be a problem, couldn't it?
Yeah, that's kind of your double-edged sword. You've got the person that makes a lot of money. Maybe they have got gross sales of 100,000 or 200,000, but then you look at their tax return and they've got 100,000 or 200,000 in write-offs. You know, underwriters aren't too accommodating to say, well, those are those don't count. So you as a self-employed borrower, you don't get the top line gross number. You get your net after business expenses. That's the income that we get to use. So that's where I think self-employed folks get a little confused sometimes on what do I get to use and what do I don't get to use. That's where the delineation is.
Okay, so it really is all about income. The lender wants to know if they're going to be able to generate enough income to pay the loan back. And what if somebody has been preparing their taxes in a way that shows that they're not getting a lot of income? How much length of time do they need to be showing adequate income for on a tax return before they can expect to get a home loan if they're self-employed?
Yep. So that's another great kind of lead into what folks are doing on their tax returns. So number one, the biggest thing that for anybody that's self-employed to look at is if you have a lot of expenses, but you have a large amount in depreciation. Depreciation is just a fictitious write-off. We can add all of that depreciation back onto income. So maybe that'll be enough to put them over the hump. The other thing is just then going to be in how long has that business been in play. So if they've been self-employed for greater than 5 years, I would tell you there's a pretty good shot we may only get asked for 1 year tax return. So that person really could just go through this year, have their tax returns look great, and we can get them qualified. If they haven't been self-employed for 5 years, probably going to get looked at for 2 years of tax returns.
Well, hey, I think that pretty much sums up how to get a mortgage self-employed. But hey, if you're watching this and you've got some questions that we haven't answered about this, just let us know. Tom's phone number is in the top of the description below for this video. And Tom, I wanted to say thanks for joining us in this conversation. Appreciate you being here. And hey, you guys, watch out for our next video. And hey, you can check out all of our videos about mortgage right here in our mortgage playlist. We look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. See ya.
Thanks, John.